I'm Reeves Kurtner, and this is In Your Business. Season 1 of In Your Business is presented by Moses Auto Mall of Huntington. Online at mosesmeansmore.com. And powered by the Huntington Regional Chamber of Commerce and Kindred Communications. This week, we're talking about franchises. What is a franchise? What are the misconceptions about franchises? The advantages, the challenges, and more. And we couldn't have a better guest for this week than Vicki Dun-Marshall. Vicki owns and operates close to 30 Little Caesars franchises and is adding more to that total, and also owns and operates Dog Haus Beer Garden in Barboursville, and has been a part of the Little Caesars franchise since she was 15 years old when she was a cashier. Let's get in your business. Vicki, thank you for sitting down with us, and let's get started by, kind of introducing yourself, your background, and your history with Little Caesars and Dog Haus Beer Garden in Barboursville. How your history there? It's a pretty cool story.
Well, I don't know if you want to tell the whole story. It's kind of lengthy, but I started when I was 15 years old at Little Caesars. It was my first job. I decided I was going to get a job and start earning my own money besides babysitting. And Burger Chef, my cousin worked there, and Little Caesars had an ad in the paper, both at the same time. So I applied both places and interviewed both places. First interview was kind of scary. I was offered a job at both, and Little Caesars ended up paying 5 cents more an hour.
Right.
So I had to take it.
Right.
And just started my career there and worked my way up. I became an assistant manager, which I was responsible with a key. I thought I was the bomb with having a key to a restaurant. And then I worked from assistant manager. I was offered a store manager's position. From there, I was offered a training manager's position, then a supervisor. Then because I had started in Little Caesars Family Inn, that was my first position, I had experience at full-service restaurants.
Sure.
So I worked that division of Little Caesars for a little while and then went into the franchise sales department.
I've never heard of Little Caesars Inn. What was that?
Little Caesars Family Inn?
Yeah.
Full-service Italian restaurant.
Okay.
Steaks, seafood, Italian, pasta, pizza.
And this was all in Michigan, right?
Yes.
This part of the story.
Yes.
Was that only in Michigan, the Family Inn?
I think they had one in Florida at the time.
Okay.
But I started very young in the company. When I began with Little Caesars, there weren't that many locations. Less than 100.
Sure.
And today, there's probably 6,000.
Sure.
So the Family Inn was a neat experience. They had liquor, waitresses. So I was one of the only experienced people at the time in that field. So they offered that position to me, and I trained a few franchisees that bought into the Family Inns and then transferred into the franchise sales department after supervision. And in franchise sales, you would want to buy a franchise. And you would go through the proper red tape and your classroom training, your financial training,
right.
all of yada, yada, yada.
Right.
And then you would be assigned to an operations person like me.
Okay.
And it was my job to hold your hand and get you from where you were to store opening, with helping you with your construction, your equipment and placement of your items that you needed. I would help you hire.
Right.
And then I would come and help you open the store from day of opening. I would work open to close for 2 weeks solid.
Okay.
With you. I would teach every single one of it was usually, I say I, but it was usually two of us. We would teach every one of your employees, cross-train them all, plus you, and then walk away and then follow up periodically to make sure that you were successful in what you were doing.
Did you ever think about becoming a franchisee yourself during all this?
Oh, yes.
And how did that?
Yes.
And when? How did all that process start for you?
I watched how I could teach people how to make money and be successful, and I was basically responsible for their future. And I was getting burned out. I was on the road. I was probably 21, 22 years old.
I understand.
And I was on the road 44 weeks that year.
Entire country? I mean.
Well, weren't
countrywide yet.
I think I had Florida and Wisconsin and Ohio and Michigan.
Pretty big territory.
And a little bit of Kentucky, because we had just started entering in Kentucky.
Okay.
And I decided, I woke up in Wisconsin one morning, and I didn't know where I was. I was in Appleton, Wisconsin, and I had to look at the phone book to recognize which hotel room I was in.
Wow.
And I said, enough is enough.
Sure.
I've got to get out and do this for me. And at the time, 22 years old, and I didn't have a boyfriend. My girlfriends were getting married. I was a bridesmaid many times over. And I just thought, I can't keep going like this. So I had an uncle in Kentucky who I had known through family visits over the years. And I was opening a store in Louisville and asked if I could pop over and say hi. Of course, they wanted to. And I showed him the limited financial information I had on the franchise, and he loved it. He said it was an all-cash business with no inventory. At the time, we didn't take credit cards, so it was totally all cash. That's right. And he absolutely fell in love with it, and he was just about to go into retirement, and he changed his mind. So we partnered together, and we bought the territory of Lexington.
Okay.
And together we opened 3 or 4 stores. My father, who I left out along the way in this story, I had always approached my father to back me. And Kalamazoo, Michigan, that market came available, and I said, Dad, please, I can do it. And I think I was 17, and he said, no, it was 2 hours away from Mom and Dad.
Okay.
And he wouldn't do it.
Okay.
So when I decided to go out on my own, I asked him to be involved, and he was still so skeptical, just very, very conservative.
Sure.
So when I did it with my uncle, my dad got, firsthand knowledge that it was working.
Sure.
I was what I said I was.
Is your dad's brother? Was it your dad's brother?
No, it was my mom's sister's husband.
I got it. Okay. All right.
So he bought the franchise in Richmond, Kentucky, and came down and opened that store in 1984. And it turned out that my relationship with my uncle kind of fell apart. I learned one of my most valuable life lessons is choosing your partners carefully. And we weren't a match. So we split up, and I went with my parents, and my goal was always to open 75. I wanted this huge empire. And we went and looked at West Virginia, which was wide open at the time.
No ties here, right?
No ties. And I remember on Easter Sunday driving over here, because I was working every single day in the restaurant in Richmond, and there were 4 exits on the interstate. Oh my gosh, Richmond only had 2.
Got it. So
I was sold. And soon after that, we had our first location in Barbersville, and I've grown it as many as 28, and I've created a lot of entrepreneurs underneath me, sold off stores to several employees.
That's great.
I think I probably have 7 franchisees out there that had worked for me at one point.
Right.
So I'm acquiring stores now and building new ones and selling them when it makes sense.
It's an awesome story. It really is. And let's start with, what is a franchise? A
franchise is a license to operate under a brand.
Okay.
It's supposed to be what you pay a royalty for a franchise, and in most cases a marketing fund. So a franchise is a proven operating system that's supposed to be tried and true with resources behind you so that they can help you to be a successful entrepreneur.
Sure. And talk about, for someone starting a franchise today, which, obviously you have a long history with Little Caesars, but you have a new history with Dog Haus in Barbersville. That's a newer story. But what's that process of like, hey, I want to start a franchise in this town? Walk us through those steps of the idea to getting it done.
Okay, so you have a good concept. Let's say it's a widget manufacturer, and you want to franchise that out. First of all, it's very expensive to do.
Okay.
You have to go through an extensive legal process, government approval, so forth, so on.
Sure.
You have to, if you're going to sell your franchise, you have to be able to support the person who's purchasing it with a perfected system of operating.
Sure.
Perfected product, whatever it is you're doing. And then continuing to support that. As they grow, you grow. A lot of the young franchises fail because they fail to monitor that.
Right.
The growth is, somebody thinks your product is great, you should franchise it, but you yourself aren't able to carry on that that life of a franchise and a brand. So it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
So when you choose your franchise, you should choose it carefully. Again, you choose your partner.
That makes a lot of sense.
And it needs to be a good fit. For instance, I've been looking at franchises for, 15 years. Always looking, always testing. Been to the dance with several of them.
Right.
You apply, they approve, they invite you in for a discovery day, you go, then they court you and you court them and you figure out if it's a match. Well, they're not always a match.
Right.
And you have to believe, first of all, you have to have a passion for the product or whatever you're getting involved in. It could be a tire repair place. You have to have a passion for whatever you're getting involved
in.
It can't be about the money or it's always going to fail.
That's right.
And then you have to make sure that the team that you're partnering with is going to service your needs. You're paying them a fee.
That's right. You're paying them for a service.
An upfront fee and then an ongoing royalty.
Sure.
For their expertise, their knowledge, and what you believe of them. It's not always easy.
Let me ask you this: you said you've gone to the dance several times. Do they want to dance with you more, or do you want to dance with them more, or is it? I guess every case would be kind of different.
You're right.
Yeah.
Every case would be different. However, I'm a multi-store franchise of food.
Right.
So anybody in the food world would want to dance because
Makes sense.
of an experience. They're in the process of selling franchises. They make money off of how many they can sell.
That's right.
The more they sell, the more the royalties come in.
Sure.
And if you can get an experienced multi-unit operator to come in, and like Dog Haus, when I signed up with them, I signed up for the whole state of West Virginia. Well, that's a whole lot better for that franchise than selling onesies, twosies. So I would say, but in the food industry, I would be sought after.
Absolutely.
Now, if it's a hair care salon, I have no experience.
Right.
They're not going to. I have business experience.
Sure.
That's attractive.
Yes.
But I have no experience in that industry.
That makes sense.
So they're not going to go after me.
So you mentioned, something you said was interesting, like, the corporate, the franchise, or providing that support when you get started and then continuing. What kind of support does Dog Haus and Little Caesars continue to provide for you now?
In a food...
And we can talk about food. Yeah,
In a food brand, anytime you have more than 50 locations, you have to do calorie menu labeling.
Okay.
With calories and all of nutritional facts. So that's a very expensive endeavor. You have to take your food products, which you should have them consistently a standard method of producing the same product. Let's say it's a hot dog.
Okay.
We're making a hot dog, and you have a consistent method, a recipe that is followed.
Sure.
Religiously.
That's right.
Well, that franchise has to take their food and take it to a lab and get it tested.
Right.
That's very expensive.
Sure.
So the franchises that are under 50 have an advantage over the ones that are larger. So what you get when you pay for a franchise is the system, the operating system, the consistency of the recipes. You get buying power, which is huge.
Right. For ingredients. Right.
For instance, my buying power with Little Caesars compared to the mom and pop pizza place down the road, which has a fabulous pizza.
Right.
They have to charge sometimes 3 times more than me.
That's right.
Because of the buying power.
That's why Little Caesar can do a $5.99 hot and ready, right?
It's a huge misconception that we're cheap pizza and we have awful ingredients. That is not true.
Sure.
We have the finest ingredients. We're just able to produce and sell, and we choose to take the value road in our marketing.
It's like the Henry Ford model, right? The more you make, the more affordable that it can be. And
true.
Yeah. So misconceptions, let's talk about those. What are the misconceptions that people often have about owning and running a franchise?
You hear a lot about local.
Sure.
Shop local.
Right.
I live here. I have raised my children here. I've been in West Virginia for 35 years, so I consider this home.
Absolutely.
Well, just because I purchase a franchise, which is a tried and true system, and I'm paying a fee to have that supposedly support and perfection, I'm labeled as not local.
Okay.
This person doesn't have a clue how much money we spend in the community,
Sure.
how much support we give. The pizza donations alone, I think we did a recent study on this because I wanted to use it in a leadership meeting. We have donated 300,000 pizzas
Wow.
to the food banks of West Virginia.
That's amazing.
Because our system is we hold a pizza for 30 minutes and then we consider it not sellable.
Okay.
Totally edible.
Right, of course.
But we donate all of those pizzas.
Sure. Community events, you mentioned that. You do support the community, the food bank. I did not know that. That's amazing. Is that something that, again, let's talk about, again, franchises, and is that something that corporate wants you to do, or is that something that Vicki wants to do on your involvement in the community?
Corporate has some suggestions on what we should do and what benefits us as franchise owners, but I live here,
right?
And I'm involved in the community, so we expand that. We have a few local programs like Pizza Paws, for example. We collect funds to assemble the needs of the canine officers around the entire state. That's something we created, and corporate is now behind us and loving us for doing it. And we're having a lot of fun with it. Other things that we do are they're involved with the employees that I have. If you work for me and I understand and I get to know you and understand your passions and what your beliefs, and I say, okay, well, maybe Reeves likes a certain charity. So we get behind that charity as a company because we support you.
That's right.
So those are the type of local store events that we get involved in. We call it local store marketing.
How many employees do you have?
Close to 600.
Wow, that's a lot of people. So, and I want to talk more about that in a second. But are there things that when you talk with corporate, hey, it might work in Michigan, it might work in Wisconsin or whatever, but we don't think that will work in West Virginia, or that we think will work in West Virginia but not in other places? How, adapting to local preferences, is that a conversation that you all have?
It is. I'm very involved in Little Caesars leadership. I sit on a couple boards that advise, and what works in West Virginia may not always work in Detroit.
Are there any examples you can think of on that?
Fresh Italian sausage is what Chicago and even Cleveland, up in that area, not necessarily Michigan, but Chicago and Cleveland that I know of. You had to use a raw sausage that was real goopy on your fingers to spread on pizza. West Virginia didn't care for that.
Okay.
So we didn't have to adapt to that. So there's local preferences.
Yeah, and that they'll let you have those local preferences.
Again, when you're choosing a franchise, choose your partner wisely.
That's right.
Do you want to have a voice? Do you want to have a say?
Yeah.
Do you want to be involved
right.
in the direction and the future of where you're going?
What about marketing and advertising? What obviously Little Caesars is a huge national advertiser, official pizza of the NFL. I mean, this past year, and if you NFL season is getting ready to start, might have already started when this airs. But then again, you all do your own local advertising. Talk about that. What does corporate do? What do you do locally in terms of advertising?
They give the guidelines. They give you pay a national you pay a national marketing fee, and that includes
a percentage of your sales.
Yes.
Yeah.
You pay X, that gets you X. So then you fill in with, the T-ball signs on the fences, or the local radio buy, or the sponsorship of the many things that we sponsor. Women Warriors is coming up.
Absolutely.
We're a major sponsor there. So we choose based on what the community needs.
Sure.
And how we feel like it's going to help. It's got to be a win-win.
Sure. And also, too, kind of add on that, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but if corporate is doing a NFL buy locally, you don't need to do something like that, right? You don't need to kind of fill in, though. You don't need to double up. They've already got that handled. So let's do more of those community local type things.
Again, that's part of the franchise advisory.
Sure.
You don't. Let's say you don't know what to do marketing wise. You're a brand new business owner and you're looking to the guidance of the franchisor, such as Dog Haus, for example. Dog Haus has a whole template of what we should do marketing-wise, and it's up to us to fill in the underneath what we should do locally. And we call them. I have a call later today with them. And we ask questions, and they, again, not everything that they suggest from California works for West Virginia.
Of course.
So it's a back-and-forth conversation.
Sure.
Then we decide on a direction, and we pencil it in.
So we've kind of hit on some of the advantages of having that support system, from a franchise. Or what are some of the challenges that you've seen, being a franchisor, being a franchisee?
I can tell you an exciting one. I had a belief that our menu at Dog Haus Beer Garden needed to have salads. They don't offer salads.
Okay.
It's just their food lineup just was very high-end ingredients, but it was bar food made kind of on the organic side.
Sure.
Just high-end, no additives,
Yes.
no fillers, no GMOs on anything. But they didn't offer salads.
Okay.
So family was going to go in and eat there, and maybe you and the kids want a burger or chicken wings,
Yes.
but your wife wanted a salad.
Right.
We had lettuce wraps, but I beat them up on that.
Yes.
And they're allowing me to put salads in.
Awesome.
So that's the relationship with the franchisor.
Right. That's great. Talk about the day-to-day operations of managing multiple locations. I know you have a great team, but what is the day-to-day like with running 27 Little Caesars, 28 Little Caesars and a Dog Haus?
What day is this?
Yes. What time is it?
Some of the challenges today are so different than they were.
Of course.
Last year, the
Right.
year before.
Pre-COVID,
Exactly.
right? Remember that whole thing?
Exactly. Challenges today are around the culture and staffing.
What do you mean?
Everybody has a different viewpoint of the work week, of the job,
Yeah.
of loyalty to a job, work ethic. The opinions and cultures are just changing, evolving. So it's up to us to try to figure out how can we be a fun place to work?
Right.
How can we be better or stand out in the field? It's just one challenge after another. We have a great. This is an example. We have a great employee, comes in, works 3 days this week, and he's on fire. We praise him. We say, "Gosh, you're doing great. You're awesome." The next day he doesn't show up. He quit his job, and he doesn't even tell us why.
Right.
So I can't help develop people if I don't know how.
Sure.
So that's one of my
Yeah.
favorite. I'll give you a great example. My senior leadership team, my COO, we were talking about filling in some vacancies in district supervisors. So I really had liked this one person that worked for me as a manager, and he left over personalities. Sometimes that happens.
Of course.
Personalities. If I could teach anybody something, I would say, don't let that direct your career, because personalities change. People come and go all the time.
That's right.
This person left a career over a personality challenge. Anyway, I reached out to him and said, I've always liked you. I think there's a place for you. We need to talk. Just checking in on you, seeing how you're doing. No response. No response.
Right.
That, to me, is such a fail.
Sure.
Anytime anybody wants to sit down and talk to you about your career and where you could grow in life,
Right.
you need to jump in.
That's right. That's right. Never burn a bridge. You never know. You're right. And if somebody wants to talk, there's no harm in that. Just sit down and talk. What about food cost? Though, that's been in the news a lot the last year and a half, 2 years. Cheese is expensive, right? So talk about those challenges and how you're able to manage those.
We have seen unprecedented increases in product prices, ingredient prices.
Right.
And it has forced us, and the first time in 15, 20 years, I'm not quite sure how long,
Sure.
we had to take a price increase. And then after we did, lo and behold, we didn't take enough because the ingredients kept rising and rising.
Sure.
So we've had to take 3 price increases in the last 3 years that have helped us survive.
Sure. Of course.
There's so many non-franchises and even franchises that didn't make it through this COVID crisis.
That's right.
And it's a shame.
Well, let's talk about that. Little Caesars was known for the $5 hot and ready. I mean, that's something I think in 20 years people will still remember. In your opinion, how do you think Little Caesars has adapted to that, kind of shifting away from that $5 hot and ready slogan that was beat into our head for the last 30 years or so?
Well, the price now is $6.49, and far away from $5.
That's right.
But
see, I thought it was $5.99.
If you look at relevance, you can't go to one of the fast food places for lunch for less than, $10 is
that's right.
is easy.
Yes.
To spend. You can still feed a family of 4 on our product. If you got a pizza, order of crazy bread, and even a 2-liter, you're paying $11.
Absolutely.
$12 with tax, something like that.
Sure.
Where can you feed your family?
Sure.
We're relevant.
You're still value driven.
Right.
Yes.
We're still, in essence, the $5 place to go.
Right.
It's just the price has increased.
Right. As has everything else. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. On some of these challenges, with employees and cultures and food costs, how does corporate assist in that?
They give us best practices. It's almost easier to talk to other franchisees. That corporate isn't supposed to be advising us how to run our business.
Right.
That's controlled with franchise laws.
Sure.
So they offer us best practices. They collect best practices from all the franchise operators, and collectively we can adapt to what works for us in our markets.
Sure.
Other markets aren't the same.
Sure.
If you're in a big city, it's not the same as a rural West Virginia.
Of course. We talked about this a little bit too, and I want to jump on financial considerations. And I don't want exact dollars and cents totals, but starting a franchise, give us, if you can, some insights into the initial investment required for starting a franchise.
To start a franchise?
Sure.
Or buy a franchise?
Buy a franchise. Okay. Buy into a franchise.
Buy into a franchise. When you are interested in a franchise, you apply. Tell them you're interested.
Yeah.
They will give you an application, and if you're approved on that application, they will give you what is called an FDD, Franchise Disclosure Document. It has all of the answers of what you're asking inside there, and including sometimes the profitability of their brand.
Okay.
And the examples of how, if you ran a typical store, what your expected results could be. A lot of times they will not disclose that information, and they give you a list of phone numbers of existing franchisees to call,
sure,
ask questions, and figure out if it's a match for you.
Sure. What about ongoing revenue sharing or royalty structures in ongoing franchise agreements? What percentages, or is that a flat fee per store? Is it a percentage of sales? And you also mentioned the marketing, a portion of your sales go directly into the marketing fund. But, again, someone that's looking to buy into a franchise, what are those agreements typically like?
So you look at a franchise, there's an entry fee that buys you the license. Then once you're approved and you get your operation up and going, there's an ongoing royalty fee usually, and it's variable. An oil change place could be far different than a Little Caesars.
That's right.
Then there's also a marketing fee, a national marketing fee. Sometimes it's 0.5% of sales. Sometimes it's 6% of sales.
Okay.
Just depends on the brand and how it's working.
Sure.
So a franchise could cost you anywhere from 1% of sales to maybe 15% of sales, depending on who you're getting involved with and what they're spending the money on.
Let's talk about future outlook and growth, and I'll go back. You said you started at Little Caesars when you were 15. I mean, to you, what's been the biggest change in Little Caesars since you started when you were 15 years old?
Well, gosh, when I was 15, I had no idea what a company looked like and how it operated. So growing up with it.
Right. You have, literally.
I have.
Yes.
Yeah. I've seen some heirs. I've seen presidents of the chain come and go. And I've been involved in some of those bad choices over the years.
Sure.
And we've recovered, thankfully.
Sure.
And believing in the people and the organization and the team is so powerful when you're going to be involved in a franchise, and having that relationship so that you have a voice, you have an opinion, somebody's listening.
That's right. That's important. That would be very, very important. If you're given a royalty fee, a marketing fee, and they're not listening to you, that would be very, very frustrating. But it sounds like, again, like you've said a couple of times now, choosing the right partner, and that's a partner that will listen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some franchisees don't require that. Their system is so tried and true. You're just buying the system,
okay,
and you take it, and maybe it's a coin car wash.
Okay.
That's a franchise. They have the equipment, the buying power, the signage, and all you do is buy that franchise and plug it in wherever you're going to plug it in, and you need not talk to those folks.
That's right.
So franchises are all different.
Sure. And food is different. I mean, food
yes.
especially is so different. Mm-hmm. It really is. Where do you see the future of Little Caesars and Dog Haus? Where do you see Little Caesars in 10, 15 years?
I see Little Caesars continuing to be a major player in the pizza industry. I can't predict where or how, but there's so many competitive brands out there with us.
Yes.
And they're all good in their own way, and everybody's an expert in a certain area. Dog Haus, that level of restaurant right now with the economy is struggling. Anybody that has a sit-down restaurant is struggling somewhat, whether it be with their food costs, their staffing levels, or in sales in general. When the economy's tight, the middle folks are having a tough time when they're spending more at the grocery store. There's less to go out and have fun.
That's right.
Take the kids out on a Saturday night. So we're all struggling a little bit.
Sure.
I look forward to that changing, but I don't see that changing very soon with the economy.
On the flip side, with economy, I mean, when the economy is tight, is that better for Little Caesars being a value-driven brand like that?
It is.
Yeah.
We're able to be the value person,
sure.
feed a family for a certain amount.
What about the future of your personal future? I mean, are there any expansion plans or new things, new initiatives that you're excited about?
We've taken on the market of Cincinnati.
There we go. Where? Let's talk about that. What is your territory?
Southern West Virginia,
okay.
which goes from Huntington, Charleston, south.
Okay.
I have Beckley, Lewisburg, Summersville, Oak Hill, Beaver, Bluefield, Princeton,
okay.
Logan, all of those southern territories. Then I go into eastern Kentucky, and we're actually under construction in Moorhead right now.
Okay.
And
what is Moorhead, Richmond? Is that area?
Moorhead is the furthest we go into Kentucky.
Okay. And then Ashland. Yes.
Tight.
To about Moorhead. Okay.
I'm in Ironton, Ohio.
Okay.
And then we acquired some stores in northern Kentucky, just under the river in Cincinnati.
Right.
And picked those up in January. We're doing well with them. It was a turnaround. And we decided we were going to take on the market of Cincinnati. And we're acquiring stores and building brand new ones.
How many stores are in Cincinnati?
I think there's probably 30, 35.
Wow. Yeah. That's great. Something, and I didn't plan to go over this, but talk about the Little Caesars food truck. What's the official name? I'm sorry. The
Little Caesars mobile kitchen.
Mobile kitchen. If you've never seen this thing in person, 25 feet, 27 feet long, It's huge. I mean, it's like a semi truck, and it's a full blown. What's the background on that, and talk about how you use that. That's not a corporate thing.
No, it's not. No. Remember the regatta?
Yeah.
Okay, we were a sponsor of the regatta many years. Every year we went on, and we did it for Huntington, Ashland, and Ironton. And I had this little concession trailer, and we would deliver pizzas to the concession trailer and sell them by the slice out to the crowd.
Right.
Then we evolved into having a little teeny oven in there.
Okay.
And we were trying to manufacture pizza. We were always we couldn't produce enough.
Couldn't keep up, sure.
So I get requests all the time for opening a Little Caesars in tertiary markets that aren't large enough to build a brick and mortar store.
Sure.
So I came up with the idea, this is several years ago, what if I built a smaller version of the Love Kitchen? Do you remember the Love Kitchen that would come to town?
Slightly. Refresh my memory, though, please.
It was a semi-truck, and the back end of the semi was a complete kitchen.
Okay.
Walk-in cooler, oven, and we would bring that in usually once or twice a year and just feed the homeless.
Yes.
And park it over there at the city mission, and then we would call all the organizations that I think the food bank coordinated it, where they had all of these pantries, and they would come to the Love Kitchen, and pick up, stacks of pizza, take them back to their folks, and we loved doing that. So we took that Love Kitchen around the state, 4 or 5 stops, and I thought, well, we could do that here.
Right.
So I started investigating the truck, and I had it custom done, and it cost me almost as much as a brick and mortar store. And it was it was an ambulance.
The front.
The front was a Ford F-550.
Okay.
Ambulance it says all these empty slots where the buttons were supposed to go for ambulances. I wish I had the button where you could change the red light.
Yes.
I'd pay for one of those. So we created this, and we started picking areas that we thought were close enough to having a brick and mortar location, and we would go there once a week. And the idea is to be consistent. For instance, West Hamlin, we've gone there on Thursdays now for probably 5 years.
Yeah. And they know you're going to be there on a Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when we don't show up on a Thursday, we're letting them down.
Right.
It's like almost having your business closed. So, the mayor of West Hamlin frequently tells me, why don't you open a location here? The demographics don't support it.
Got it.
So having this truck is serving the community. It's giving them an option that maybe they didn't have
That's right.
before. Is it a money-making project for us? No. Should it be? Yes.
Right.
I mean, we could perfect it and get it, but it's not. It's more about serving those communities
right.
with our brand. And we did some mistakes on positioning, where we should take it, what days, what towns. But the idea is to have it go out 5-6 days a week.
Right. Have you put it somewhere and gone, you know what, we could put a store here? Has that helped that?
Moorhead.
Right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you looked at the number, you're like, I bet we can do this 7 days a week here, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. I'm about ready to wrap up. I think we've talked a lot without specifically saying, hey, advice for aspiring franchise owners, franchisees. We've talked a lot about choosing your partner. Any other advice that you would offer someone that wants to invest in a franchise, buy into a franchise?
There are counselors. A good friend of mine started a business where she is a consultant for people looking to get into a franchise. So there are those resources out there.
Sure.
So somebody who has business experience and tried and true, has been there, done that kind of thing, she is now a resource for folks that they think they want to, maybe they're retiring, they want to buy a franchise, their children might be involved in it. She's a resource that can point you in all the different directions, kind of like doing like a personality test to find out what you're matched for,
right?
What your finances are matched for, what your work ethic is going to work out to be. It's a lot different than buying the coin car wash that you visit once a day and collect coins and fill up the soap.
Sure.
Versus a food franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
right.
There's resources.
That's great.
Available.
So do that research, use those resources. What's some of the lessons that you've learned in your career?
Oh my gosh, I thought you wanted to wrap up. I have learned a lot.
Yeah. And still learning, hopefully, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. I got into several side ventures, the real estate. I had a family that came from the construction world.
Okay.
So we started when we stopped building Little Caesar stores, we needed something for them to do. So we started buying fixer-uppers, which led to getting some rental properties. Well, guess what? I had to learn how to be a landlord.
Okay.
I had to learn how to do leases and run a business of rental properties. There's not a franchise for that.
That's right.
And so there are a lot of mistakes there, but I think we run a pretty clean operation now, pretty
That's great.
efficient.
Yeah.
Got the system on autopilot.
This has been In Your Business. I'm Reeves Kurtner. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, share, and even leave us a review. Season 1 of In Your Business is presented by Moses Auto Mall of Huntington, mosesmeansmore.com, and powered by the Huntington Regional Chamber of Commerce and Kindred Communications.